Welcome to this week's edition of Sneak Peeks, where I'm going to be giving you a first glimpse of the production-ready Volkswagen ID.7. So, without further ado, welcome to a secret location somewhere in Birmingham. Welcome to the new Volkswagen ID.7, and as always, welcome to AutoEV. Now, before we go on to this week's edition of Sneak Peeks and the new Volkswagen ID.7, there is of course that time where I ask you to make sure that you are subscribed to the AutoEV channel. And then once you've done that, make sure you press the little bell button that's down below, because then that way you'll be notified when our next video goes live. Once you've watched the video, if you do enjoy it, make sure you give it a thumbs up. And of course, as always, make sure you do leave us your comments as well. Let us know what you think about the cars that we review and obviously give these sneak peeks to, and as the channel as a whole. Now, Volkswagen's ID.7. What do we know so far about the car? Well, it's a large 5-door fastback. It's slightly bigger than a Passat, maybe not quite as big as a 5 Series BMW Mercedes-Benz EQE. So it sort of occupies that sort of like marketplace where you're going to see cars from competition such as Tesla's Model Y, BMW's i4, Polestar 2, and of course Hyundai's Ioniq 6. It's Volkswagen's MEB platform, so it's not shared with any piston engine, so it's not an electric version of a Passat. It is a brand new all-electric, electric-only car from the brand, and it's slotting into the ID family. And there's a lot of new technology on the car, not just battery tech, but a lot of aero in the car, which we'll talk about in the styling, and as well as that, a lot of new tech on the inside, because as you know, if you're a regular viewer of AutoEV, we've been quite critical of some of the software that Volkswagen have used in their interiors. This is the one that's going to probably change it a little bit more. Now, we're going to start with styling. Now, the first thing to say is apologies. There is a lot of people here today. We are at the sort of the world premiere of the car at the UK side of it, so you'll see a lot of people in the video. So first of all, apologies for that. But let's talk about the styling of the car. And it is a sort of like a next move on from where we've seen things like the ID.3 and the ID.4 so far. It's a very clean looking car. That's the first thing. And it's one of those cars that the more you look at it, the more you start to really appreciate some of the very clean details of it. Now, aerodynamic efficiency is the key with this, and that's part of the reason why the car is going to have such a good range, certainly according to official figures. Its aerodynamic efficiency is very good. Now, apologies for the notebook, because I've been literally just got the information this morning as I arrived here. Now, its CD coefficient, its drag coefficient, is as low as 0.23 CD, which is very, very close to what we've seen things like the Mercedes-Benz EQS and EQE. So Volkswagen are going for a real aero look on the car, but that doesn't really say it's going to be kind of boring and sort of like just more efficient like the Mercedes-Benz seem to have done with the EQ range. There are some nice details on it. Now, you've got LED headlamps on the front, as you can see, and then this full width light bar that runs across. You've got a really big prominent Volkswagen logo at the front of the car as well, and there's a little camera that's down just there. I really like this front end. It's got a nice kind of sleek look to it, and all your cooling is down at the bottom here, as you'd expect, with some obviously the sensors there. As I say, some really trick aero underneath the car as well. So you've got a complete flat under tray on the vehicle, as you'd expect, with something like a skateboard architecture. And then at the rear, as you'll see, there's a really clever sort of like diffuser at the rear as well. So the airflow is directed up through and underneath the car. So as we move along the side of the car, you can see it's very similar in profile to the ID.5, you know, the coupe version of the ID.4. You've got this kind of silver finish that goes up over from the A-pillar all the way back to the C-pillar. It's got a real kind of sleek kind of coupe look about it. You get 20-inch alloy wheels on this particular model. We've got no spec details as yet, but obviously we can talk about that when we get to fully drive the car later this year. But this one's sitting on 20-inch alloy wheels, and again, nice that kind of aero design that you get with sort of like EVs. Very aero efficient kind of door mirrors on the side here with the embedded kind of cameras in them, and again that sculpted kind of side sill. There's a couple of really nice strong lines on the car, so you'll see that shoulder line that just kind of really is this nice sharp crease through the door, the flush door handles, and this one down at the bottom here that just kind of sweeps up to the wheel arch. It's a very safe looking design. It's not going to really scare people off, but in this particular car, you've got your two-tone kind of contrast with it. Now, it's also going to have the option of a very clever glass roof as well, which we've seen on some other cars, where you'll go either clear or fully opaque at the touch of a button. As I say, flush door handles here. Look at this little bit of section here, just at the back here. That section of side sill that's just going to take the airflow out past the wheels. Now, in terms of size-wise, let me just sort of give you some of the dimensions so you can get a rough idea of how big the car is. So its overall length is 4,961 millimetres, so just under the 5 metres in length. To give you some kind of perspective on that, a Passat is 4,866 millimetres, so it's 100 millimetres longer than a Passat, and a Tesla Model 3 is 4,694 millimetres, so just under a foot longer than a Model 3 Tesla. Now, at the rear of the car, you've got, as you'd expect, your standard LED light bar. And I think it's a really nice, distinctive looking rear end on this car. I think it's one of those cars, when I first saw it this morning, I thought, oh, it's a bit bland looking, but the more and more I've been looking at it, the more I really like it. It doesn't quite have the kind of Scandi look about, say, the Polestar 2, but it's certainly a little bit more interesting than, say, a Tesla Model 3. Again, your big bold Volkswagen logo at the back there, and this was what I was talking about here. It's difficult to kind of see, and obviously in a dark coloured car in the studio, but you've got a really quite bit of trick rear diffuser as well, which helps airflow come up round from underneath the car to give it a real aero efficiency. And again, the same as this sort of like with this integrated sort of like rear kind of spoiler into the car. Nothing extraneous on the vehicle. There's no stuck on bits of addenda that you don't really need. Very clean, very crisp, very Volkswagen. But what do you think? Too bland? Or is it about right? Is it what you would be expecting from the brand? If you were driving a Passat, for instance, would this tempt you out of it into something like an ID.7? Or, more importantly, is it going to tempt you away from your Tesla Model 3 into one of these? As always, let us know in the comment section down below. Now, as I say, the car is a 5-door liftback, which you operate just by a touch underneath there, and it opens up to a big massive boot. Now, there's no official figures on it, but to give you again a rough sort of idea, you're looking at around about 530 litres of boot space with the rear seats in place. There's a standard 60-40 split with a load through facility as well, and if you're to knock all that down, I'd guess you're probably looking at around about 1,600 litres of space that's available. It's a really nice open space as well, because as I say, it's very square. There's no big wheel arch intrusions into it, which again is a benefit you get with a dedicated EV platform. There is some underfloor storage, so the boot floor will lift up to give you a little bit of sort of like a sort of hidey hole, if you like, but then there's a further lift up to give you good cable storage as well. Unfortunately, however, there is no front storage at the car either, so although it's a dedicated EV platform, as we've seen with the other Volkswagen ID cars, there's no storage under the front bonnet. Now, there's a real focus on the interior space of the car, and as I say, it's quite a long car as well, with a good length of wheelbase as well. So it does add to the interior space of the vehicle, as you'd expect. And you've got plenty of lounging space back here. Now, the rear bench on this particular car is kind of shaped effectively for two, although you would be able to get a third person sat in the middle here, because you do have a complete flat floor as well. So although it's sort of like sculpted certainly for the two outer ones, there's enough for a middle person as well. As you'd expect, you've obviously got ISOFIX points, which are like, you know, Volkswagen standard. You've got nice little plastic covers, so they're nice and easy to get your child seats into. And there's some decent storage. You get the kind of pockets up on the tops of the backs of the seats there, and a decent sort of like size mat pocket there. Door bins at the side, they're nice. They're certainly shaped for water bottles, so you get those in, and they're lined as well. So again, Volkswagen coming back to their kind of quality, which is good to see, so things won't kind of rattle around. There's some really nice ambient lighting around the car, and as I say, it depends on the specification, I'm sure, when the specs are launched, as what comes with what. So I can't really go too much into detail of that at the moment because we don't really know. But I say it certainly adds to sort of like the ambience of the interior as well, and it does feel like Volkswagen are getting back to this kind of quality feel for the interiors. There's not a huge amount of sort of like, you know, sort of like hard plastics. Everything feels nice and kind of soft touch back here. You know, the sort of like the nicely kind of damped grab handles that you used to get on the Mark IV Golfs, which is lovely to see. As I say, in terms of space, well, there's plenty of it. I know I'm a bit of a shorty, but I have got bags of room here in terms of leg room. There's good foot room underneath the seats, and there's plenty of headroom for me. I think if you're maybe getting one for the 6 foot, you might find it encroaches into you a little bit. And as I say, this particular car doesn't have that glass roof, so it'd be interesting to see if that adds to headroom or decreases the headroom, depending on it. There's connectivity, as you'd expect. There's a couple of USB-C ports down there, but as I say, on the whole, you've got fairly decent kind of, sort of like feeling of space back here. Centre armrest, as you'd expect, nice comfortable seating position, 2 cup holders in there as well, and as I say, in terms of the boot space, you do have that load through facility. So in terms of its class, what it's going to compete with, it's certainly as good as the Tesla Model 3 back here, as well as the Hyundai Ioniq 6, and way better than likes the BMW i4 and the Polestar 2. So up front, what do we expect? Well, it's Volkswagen's sort of like a new age of their user interface, which is better than it has been. There's been a massive backlash from not just us reviewers, but also from the public in terms of Volkswagen's sort of like buttons and the lack of, and some of the way that the sort of like your interface with the infotainment system works. And I have to say, this is better, certainly on first acquaintance. Now, obviously, it's going to take a full road test review before we can give it a real thumbs up. And it's not all perfect. There are still some areas that's going to irk me slightly, as I'm sure you'd expect to find. But let's talk about basics now. So, new interior with the car. Again, like I said when I was in the back, massive uplift in quality. It feels like Volkswagen are getting back to where they should be. There's lots of kind of soft touch materials. There's still a little bit of creakiness, but I'm going to put that down to the fact this is also a pre-production car. But you've got a nice amount of like storage, and there's some nice touches like a wireless charging pad in there that you can cover up. There's 2 big kind of cup holders in there. There's also an under tunnel storage there as well, because obviously it's dedicated platform, you don't need transmissions, so that's got a good storage in there. Storage in the centre armrest as well, which is nice and deep, and again everything seems to be lined, which is nice, which, as I say, makes it feel like Volkswagen are taking the quality issues they've had seriously. There is still a lack of physical buttons on the ID.7, and we've still retained these kind of slider controls, but what the difference is with them, these ones on the ID.7, is they are now illuminated, so they're much easier to use in terms of in the interior at night. They've also made a big thing on the augmented head-up display. So there's an augmented satellite navigation in the car as well, which obviously you can display up on the windscreen of the vehicle too. You get a small slit in front of the driver, which will give us basic information such as speed, range, state of charge, that type of thing as well. But again, the focus is now on this, a big 15-inch central display screen. And as I say, it's very good. It's very kind of slick to operate. At first, it seems to be all working correctly. You've got some nice, as I say, user interface buttons. It's still touch sensitive, which is, let's say, not really ideal in some respects, and there's still a little bit too much in here. But you've got your climate control system, which is always on, and as I say, these slider controls do tend to sort of like slightly work better because, as I say, they're actually illuminated at night, so they do tend to be a bit slicker than we've seen before from other ID products. Specification wise, well, as I say, we've yet to sort of like see what's coming to the car, but obviously I'm sure you can assume things like Apple CarPlay and Android Auto is going to be here, and as I say, there's inbuilt Spotify there by the looks of it as well, and there's certainly just again being able to sort of like sit and play with this car for a little bit, you do tend to feel that it's a little bit slicker. It's just a little bit easier to get on with than it has been previously. So yeah, it's an improvement, let's just say that. Okay, seating position. Well, that is very good. The seats are really nice and comfortable. There's a good range of adjustment, certainly on this car here. You can adjust the squab length. There's certainly a nice driving position. The steering wheel, however, does retain these infernal touch-sensitive controls as well, which I'm never a fan of on the Volkswagen car, so that's a little bit of a shame. Your transmission lever is up on this column stock here, so of course, twisting forward for drive and bringing back for neutral and reverse, and P for park at the end, and then as you'd expect on the other side you've got your indicator switch and wipers as well. But again, just going back to sort of like the quality, again, they feel chunky, they feel like they move well, so it's as you'd expect, or certainly as we've come to expect from years past of Volkswagen. It seems they've kind of back into finding their mojo with regards to that. And again, the quality of the dashboard, the doors, this ambient lighting that's through the car gives it a bit of a lift. Now, Volkswagen making a big play with the interior of this car as well, because they're going for a completely leather-free interior across their range, and there's a massive focus on recyclable materials as well. So that's another area where they're trying to sort of like lead the field, if you like. There's another quite quirky thing with the ID.7, where it's a thing called smart air conditioning. So it will actually detect you approaching the car as the driver, and it will start to switch the systems on, and it will precondition the interior to that temperature. So you don't have to actually set it, the car will detect you moving towards it and set it up. It is also, we're told, able to detect the location of the sun and adjust the air conditioning accordingly as well. A little bit like the Tesla Model Y, you've got this nice kind of, sort of, you know, hidden vent across the sort of like the centre of the dashboard that distributes the airflow, and again sort of like a little bit down here as well, you've got this little vent here which is nice and easy to you know, got a nice bit of airflow coming out from that. But as I say, it just feels like there is a step up in the quality of the interior on the ID.7, as I say, that we haven't really seen with the first launch of the ID.3 and then subsequent ID.4 and ID.5 launches. So it's nice to sort of like say that about a Volkswagen interior again, that the quality is back. But as I say, in terms of how easy it all is to use, that's going to have to wait for a full AutoEV road test, which we'll obviously bring to you as soon as we're able to. Now, there's going to be 2 battery sizes eventually available with the ID.7. And you're going to charge from here, which is quite nice, this top hinged flap, which is quite nice. You're going to have, these are usable capacities, but these are WLTP figures, so obviously as yet we still don't have real world ranges. But we start with a 77 kilowatt hour battery, which should give a WLTP range of up to 382 miles. Or you have the option of an 86 kilowatt hour battery, which should give up to 435 miles. And also as well, charging speeds, well, that's somewhere where Volkswagen have done a big improvement as well. So preconditioned charging speeds are going to be available up to 200 kilowatts. But as I say, as yet, we don't have any charging times available, but we'll get them to you as soon as we can. Now, from launch, the ID.7 will be available with just one powertrain, which is a single motor mounted on the rear axle, delivering 282 brake horsepower. Now, it should be enough to give the car a 0 to 62 mile an hour time of around about 7 seconds. Now, this motor is brand new to the ID.7. It's unique to this particular model. In other words, it hasn't been developed from the ID.3 or the ID.4 or ID.5. And there's been a huge amount of engineering gone into it to provide better efficiency, coupled with greater performance as well as better cooling as well, which will of course help with the efficiency. I'm sure as the model progresses we're going to see different variants, the dual motor GTX model perhaps, and as far as the styling is concerned, we're also going to see a shooting brake version. Now, competition is going to be relatively fierce for the new Volkswagen ID.7 because of course it's going up against models such as the Tesla Model 3, as well as Polestar 2, Hyundai Ioniq 6 and BMW i4. And of course they'll be wanting to tempt people from Passat and Arteon into Volkswagen's new electric age. Given first impressions of it, it's a good and welcome addition into this sort of like saloon car sector of the EV market. Now, as yet, no prices have been confirmed, same with specifications for the UK market. But given the sort of size and the sort of premium feel of the car, I wouldn't be shocked if it started with a 5, somewhere in the early £50,000 mark when the car is released into the UK market. Now we should see that in 2023 when of course we hope to get a car for a first drive where we'll be able to give you a full proper AutoEV road test. So, the new Volkswagen ID.7, another addition to Volkswagen's burgeoning electric car range. And as I say, it's a real return to form in a lot of ways for Volkswagen, certainly in terms of quality and the way the car certainly feels. Will it be enough to tempt people out of things like Tesla Model 3 and of course BMW i4 and Polestar 2, not forgetting of course Hyundai's brilliant new Ioniq 6? Well, of course we're going to have to wait until we get a chance to drive the car in a full AutoEV road test. But certainly as far as today is concerned, it's been an interesting glimpse into the future of Volkswagen's EV for the family person. Thanks again for watching another edition of Sneak Peeks at AutoEV. As always, please make sure you are subscribed to the channel. Once you've done that, press the little bell button down below because then you'll be notified of when our next video goes live. If you've enjoyed the video, make sure you do give it a thumbs up. And as always, please let us know your thoughts on the new car and of course on the channel as a whole. Remember, we're also across all social media as well, so Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, TikTok and of course Instagram, so do give us a follow there. And if you still haven't had enough of a silly fat wee Scotsman talking about electric cars, then make sure you stick on our YouTube channel, because there's certainly plenty of videos for you to go through. Not just sneak peeks, but road test reviews, electric icons, and even van reviews and motorbike reviews. All that remains for me to say is thanks once again for watching. I'll see you again soon.